Jake Paul freaks out as Gervonta Davis sues him for $100 million. This is huge.
And like what it's gonna do for so many fighters and so many people, and I'm scared. I'm just like, what the I'm a mess.
Jake Paul is freaking out like never before as Gervonta Davis comes crashing down on him with a $100 million lawsuit. This is a full-blown legal earthquake with Jake caught in the epicenter, scrambling for cover. And with Tank swinging legal haymakers, this feud just exploded into something massive, chaotic, and absolutely devastating for Jake's career.
This is probably the worst mistake of his career.
The moment the lawsuit hit the public, everything around Jake Paul cracked wide open. Gervonta Davis went straight for a $100 million lawsuit accusing Jake of defamation, breach of contract, and blowing up what was supposed to be the biggest exhibition fight of the entire year. And the craziest part is that Tank's team says that number isn't exaggerated. They claim Jake's public comments triggered a chain reaction, sponsors backing out, business deals freezing, and millions in promotional money going straight down the drain. One accusation from Jake, they say, cost Gervonta a fortune, and now he wants Jake to pay every dollar back.
I will be shutting you the fuck up and making you eat your own words.
And behind the scenes, people close to the situation swear Jake is panicking because his whole narrative is collapsing in real time. For months, he pushed the idea that he pulled out of the fight because of Tank's legal issues, making himself look like the guy who walked away on moral grounds. But now Tank's legal filing flips that story upside down. According to Davis, Jake didn't stand for morals, rather. He ran from danger. That single claim is the core of the entire $100 million disaster.
And it goes back to like people just like attacking Jake Paul and like wanting to see me fail for literally like fucking nothing.
But none of this came out of thin air. This lawsuit is basically the final spark on a pile of gasoline that's been building for months. The leaked footage drama, the Rogan criticisms, the suspicious exhibition rules, the online chaos, all of it laid the groundwork for this explosion. Jake's camp tried to control the narrative, but the backlash didn't slow down. And the more Jake tried to explain himself, the more people believed something wasn't right.
Jake fought a guy who was his age and was also considered a boxer, and he lost.
And to understand why this lawsuit feels so massive, you have to go back to what this fight was supposed to be. Jake versus Tank wasn't pitched as a normal boxing match. This was supposed to be a historic Netflix mega event, locked for November 14th, 2025. A crossover spectacle hyped to pull in possibly 1 billion views across platforms. Everybody knew the stakes, everyone knew the money on the table, and frankly, everyone knew the danger. Tank is a completely different level of fighter, a pound-for-pound powerhouse with explosive knockout power that scares even elite boxers. No one cared about the size difference. Experts still favored Davis. That's how wild the matchup was.
Tank's team is now fighting back, and they're stating that Netflix did not, in fact, cancel the bout.
Netflix jumped into this fight with one mission: to make it the most insane cinematic combat event ever streamed. But that ambition came with a price. Insiders said Netflix wanted creative control, with unusual exhibition clauses stacked into the contract. Clauses that people in boxing circles had never seen before. It wasn't enough for the fight to be competitive. Netflix wanted drama. They wanted storylines. They wanted moments that could go viral before the next scene even played out.
They're all fucking
They've
crazy.
all done weird shit.
They're fucking crazy.
And that's exactly how the sport started to split in two. Hardcore boxing fans felt the whole thing crossed a line. Promoters, coaches, analysts, they all started speaking up. From day one, critics said this matchup violated everything traditional boxing stands for. They warned it was too scripted, too manufactured, too much like a performance instead of a real fight. And once rumors began circulating about leaked rehearsals, everything got worse. Because if you add all that pressure, the spectacle, the streaming demands, the endless public scrutiny, and then mix in leaked footage claims and Joe Rogan openly clowning Jake Paul, it's not hard to see how this entire situation spiraled out of control.
Like, they're suing me for something I didn't do.
That's where the tension exploded. You had Tank's natural knockout power. You had Jake's massive platform. You had Netflix pushing for the biggest event in combat sports history. And instead of ending in a fight, all of it collapsed into a legal war worth 9 figures. The kind of lawsuit that can bury careers, flip public narratives, and expose everything that was happening behind the scenes.
That's a scary one for fighters too, because
the thrill of things. Like, there's something about fighters are adrenaline junkies that like to be pumped up, and yeah.
Right now, the court filings paint a picture where Jake's decisions didn't just cancel a fight, they destroyed an Empire-level event that took months to build. Tank's team says the canceled bout triggered millions in losses from marketing, ticket deals, merchandise partners, and international rights. And according to them, Jake's public accusations created irreversible damage. They're holding him responsible for every penny.
It's just like so annoying. It's like, why am I giving, like, not only did I spend like my time, my effort, my energy, my mom.
You're constantly dealing with hate.
Yeah.
From a certain, especially from a certain sector of the online community.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Jake isn't just fighting a lawsuit, he's fighting the public perception that he backed out because he didn't want to get knocked out. And when you have analysts like Rogan repeatedly saying Tank would have destroyed him, it only makes Jake look worse.
Like, on God, it's just the most bullshit thing. And I literally had to pay them a lot of fucking money for no reason.
That's what makes this moment so intense. This isn't just a contract argument. It's not a simple athlete dispute. This is the collision of entertainment boxing, real boxing, and a billion-dollar streaming machine, all wrapped around the pride of two men who built their reputations in completely different worlds. And somehow, the fallout has turned into one of the biggest legal explosions modern boxing has ever seen.
That's a scary one for fighters too, because the thrill.
Joe Rogan had been ringing the alarm bells long before this whole thing blew up. And honestly, he wasn't whispering. He was practically screaming it into a megaphone. Every time Jake Paul's name came up, Rogan had the same reaction you'd expect from someone watching a toddler run toward traffic. He kept saying Tank Davis wasn't just a puncher. He was a walking knockout, a guy who could put you to sleep with a jab that barely looked like a jab. And Jake, according to, is not ready. According to him, this entire matchup felt like a stunt, not a serious fight, and anyone trying to pretend otherwise was delusional.
But you know, it seemed a little sus.
And then Rogan started talking about the one thing Jake probably wished he never mentioned, the leaked rehearsal footage. This was the clip that had the internet going crazy for days. Rogan didn't say the footage was real, but he absolutely called out how suspicious it looked. He highlighted how some sequences looked way too clean, like someone had choreographed them in a back room somewhere. And when Rogan, of all people, looks at your footage and raises an eyebrow, that's when the rest of the fight community starts raising both.
He has made a significant impact on the sport of boxing. He has certainly brought new eyes to the sport. He's done so much in uplifting women's boxing.
Before Jake could even catch his breath, the pressure started pouring in from all angles. Dana White jumped in with his no-filter opinions. Daniel Cormier chimed in. Tank's coach Calvin Ford had something to say too, and none of it was warm or encouraging. Everyone questioned the legitimacy of the fight, the contract, the format, everything.
And I knew that it was gonna be like a big L. And it, like, I'm just sitting on the phone call for literally like something I did not do. Like,
Rogan's biggest point though was brutal. Jake was in over his head completely. He said it like a guy who'd seen enough fighters get obliterated in real time to know when someone's in danger. Even before the lawsuit, before the cancellation, before the whole circus exploded, Rogan predicted disaster. And honestly, looking at how things unfolded, he wasn't wrong. His warnings didn't just echo, they sank deep into Jake's brain, adding to the panic already building behind the scenes.
Why he decided to step back into the ring. And I think if you were to pause there and ask most people, what do you think he's going to answer? What do you think a fighter would answer to this? We would probably expect things like, you know, I want to prove that I still got it. I want to prove that I could put this YouTuber down.
But then came the real spark. The moment things turned from chaotic to full-on boxing meltdown. That's when the leaked footage scandal spiraled into something no one saw coming. Overnight, the internet was convinced Jake and Tank had been rehearsing their fight like they were preparing for a Broadway performance. Clips surfaced showing suspiciously scripted exchanges in which both fighters appeared to be running through patterns rather than actually sparring. Fans were replaying the footage frame by frame, debating whether the punches were real or rehearsed.
I never let myself go there. You know, I'm a fierce competitor.
And then Netflix entered the conversation, or rather, the accusations about Netflix did. Suddenly people were saying Netflix wanted creative control, as if the fight was supposed to come with a plot twist, dialogue, and a cliffhanger. This wasn't a sport anymore. According to critics, it was turning into a show with gloves, and that's where the outrage really kicked in. Tank's team went ballistic. They called the footage misleading, fake, edited, twisted, whatever word they could use to distance themselves from the mess. They insisted Tank didn't rehearse anything, but the internet doesn't calm down that easily, and the story only grew bigger.
I mean, if he wants to do boxing, why not fight guys that actually box for a living?
Soon, the entire boxing community was split down the middle. Half were convinced this was WWE with better lighting. The other half thought Jake's team leaked the footage to control the narrative. And somewhere in the middle, Jake Paul looked like he was trapped in quicksand. Every time he tried to move, he sank deeper. Fans everywhere were questioning whether this was a real fight, a made-for-Netflix blockbuster, or a hybrid circus act that neither sport nor entertainment wanted to fully claim. The credibility of the fight wasn't just damaged, it was shredded.
Some stuff you could do for the entertainment, but then, hey man,
there's a line.
We talked about repercussions, bro.
Yeah,
you want to talk about somebody's wife or kids or a dead.
And that brings us to the moment where everything collapsed. Jake Paul pulled the plug on the whole thing just 11 days before fight night. That's not a normal cancellation window. That's panic mixed with a sprint for the exit. Jake suddenly blamed Tank's legal situation, pointing to Davis's past and implying he didn't want to be associated with someone like that. But Jake didn't stop there. He publicly suggested Netflix themselves didn't want anything to do with Tank because of those allegations.
Jake fought a guy who was his age and was also considered a boxer, and he lost.
Tank's team didn't just get mad, they went nuclear. They came out immediately saying Jake lied. Their statement was basically, Netflix never canceled anything, Jake did. And that one contradiction is exactly what formed the foundation of the $100 million lawsuit. Tank's camp said Jake didn't walk out on principle. He walked out because he didn't want to get knocked into another dimension on live streaming.
And it goes back to like people just like attacking Jake Paul and like wanting to see me fail. For literally like fucking nothing.
Then came the behind-the-scenes leaks. People close to the event claimed Jake had been under insane pressure, dealing with conflicting advisors, non-stop criticism, and the real fear of standing across from Tank Davis in a ring. And based on what fighters and analysts were saying, that fear wasn't irrational. Tank hits like a weapon, the kind of weapon that doesn't need precision, it just needs one clean connection.
Tank's team is now fighting back, and they're stating that Netflix did not, in fact, cancel the bout.
Tank Davis has never pretended to be an angel. His legal past has been public for years. The arrests, the accusations, the headlines that stuck to him like glue. Fans already knew the story. Tank had controversies, some big, some messy, all of them shaping how parts of the world saw him. And for most of his career, Tank fought through it the same way he fought in the ring. Forward, hard, and without apology. But when the Jake Paul chaos started brewing, those old incidents suddenly got dragged back into the spotlight, not by the media, but by Jake himself.
I never let myself go there. You know, I'm a fierce competitor.
Jake took Tank's past and turned it into a weapon, a shiny moral sword he held up like he was auditioning to play the hero in a courtroom drama. He insisted he couldn't platform an abuser. He claimed his company had values, and he painted the whole thing as an ethical stand. The timing was almost too perfect, right when he was getting slammed with leaked footage accusations, weight questions, and Rogan roasting him on every platform. Suddenly, Jake Paul became the guy defending women. He was the brave knight walking away from danger, or at least that's what he tried to sell.
Tank's team is now fighting back, and they're stating that Netflix did not, in fact, cancel the bout.
Tank's team didn't just reject that narrative. They erupted. They said Jake wasn't standing on any moral principle. They said he wasn't defending anyone. They accused him of digging into Tank's past and weaponizing it because he needed an escape hatch fast. And the worst part is that the lawsuit agrees. The court filings say Jake reached back into Tank's legal history, grabbed the ugliest parts, and used them like a PR shield. According to Tank's lawyers, Jake twisted those old incidents into a convenient moral excuse to bail out of a fight he didn't want anymore. And this is where everything snaps from drama drama to full-on war. The $100 million lawsuit. Tank's camp isn't playing nice. They're accusing Jake of fear, fraud, and flat-out fabrication. According to the lawsuit, Jake knew Netflix never canceled anything. He knew the event wasn't pulled, but he still went online and acted like he was the moral firefighter saving the world from Tank Davis. Tank's legal team claims Jake backed out for one reason. He didn't want to get knocked out cold on one of the biggest stages in combat sports history, and knowing Tank's power, that fear wasn't exactly irrational.
They called Gervonta Davis the Tank for a reason. He only needs one shot to end the entire night.
Davis, big straight left, down goes Gamble.
But fear or not, the consequences are massive. The lawsuit says Jake's lies destroyed millions in promotional value. The marketing, sponsorships, venue deals, Netflix partnership, and production costs. Everything evaporated because Jake created a false narrative. Tank's team wants compensation and not pocket change. They're demanding damages for defamation, breach of contract, financial sabotage, basically every way Jake allegedly blew up the business. Their message is simple. If Jake fabricated a moral story to hide his panic, then he needs to pay for the damage it caused. And that damage isn't tiny. It's 9 figures.
Which is a massive pressure. A massive pressure. Not to mention a number of other things that, you know, some the internet knows about and some that they don't. But I, as someone that's 35, looking at you.
And once the lawsuit hit the public, the aftermath was brutal. Jake Paul started spiraling in real time. Promoters, managers, fighters, everyone who ever worked with him started calling him out. They said he broke one of the only unspoken rules in the fight game. You don't burn the business. One promoter said Jake destroyed trust in any future spectacle fights. And coming from a world where half the fights are already circus-level entertainment, that's saying something.
Ring Magazine. Jake Paul admits he's scared and losing sleep over a Gervonta Davis fight.
Then Netflix pulled back, not loudly, not publicly, but quietly, slowly. They started exploring other fighters, other events, other personalities who wouldn't drag them into courtroom drama. When a billion-dollar platform distances itself from you without even saying a word, that silence hits harder than any punch Tank ever threw.
Jake Paul reacts to Tank's new sparring, I might lose, it says on the YouTube thumbnail. Jake Paul says he's scared for the Tank fight, Boxing News.
And of course, Joe Rogan didn't let it slide. He revisited the whole situation and basically said Jake dug his own grave. According to Rogan, Jake tried to tell a story he couldn't sustain. He got caught in the lie. And now the narrative has flipped. He's no longer the brave disruptor of boxing. He's the guy who ran from the fight and built a moral smokescreen to cover it up.
I mean, what more do you want to know? Boxing has always been an insane and crazy game.
What makes this whole situation even crazier is that it isn't just about Jake Paul or Gervonta Davis anymore. This lawsuit has blown the doors open on the big conversation everyone in boxing has been trying to avoid. For years, traditional fighters have been grumbling in locker rooms, at press conferences, on podcasts, complaining that influencers were turning boxing into a flashy sideshow. But now, with a $100 million lawsuit on the table, it feels like the entire sport finally hit its breaking point.
Anybody that's an elite wrestler yet. You know, I mean, think about who has he fought that could really wrestle. Prohaska is like a...
You've got old school boxers saying influencer fights are turning into scripted exhibitions, entertainment first events where the drama matters more than the punches. And this lawsuit basically dumped gasoline on that fire. Tank's filing feels less like a personal attack on Jake and more like a warning to the entire influencer world. If you treat this sport like YouTube drama instead of a business contract, you're gonna pay for it. It's like Tank drew a line in the sand. One side is real fighting, the other side is manufactured chaos. And he's daring everyone to choose which one they belong to.
You're fighting guys that are real strikers.
Promoters are whispering about it. Fighters are venting about it. Even fans are stepping back and asking themselves whether these hybrid spectacle fights are helping the sport or dragging it into a circus tent. Boxing has always had a mix of showmanship and violence, but now those two worlds are smashing together so hard that no one knows what the future looks like. And this lawsuit is basically the earthquake shaking the whole foundation. But here's where things get really wild. What happens next in this case could literally reshape combat sports. If Tank wins the full $100 million, that's not just a payout, that's a message carved in stone. Influencer boxing cannot play fast and loose with contracts, storylines, and public narratives. Every creator turned fighter will think twice before pulling out of a fight, spinning a moral angle, or turning a contract dispute into a content strategy.
I really believe that. It was like lawsuit, like Tana shit, and then like trending on.
Jake, on the other hand, might not even let this get to trial because of a public courtroom battle that would expose every detail. The contracts, the negotiation emails, the Netflix terms, the footage, drama, everything. And Jake knows once that curtain gets pulled back, the internet will eat whatever comes out of it. A settlement might save him from having his entire operation dissected under a legal microscope. But if he refuses to settle and loses, the fallout would be massive. Sponsors would run, partnerships would crumble, and the whole Jake Paul boxing brand, which he spent years building, could take a hit it never recovers from. And if he wins, then it's Tank's reputation that gets dented for filing a lawsuit that didn't hold up. Either way, the industry takes notes, because this case isn't just two fighters arguing over a canceled match. It's about the future of fighter contracts, the power of streaming giants, the consequences of spinning narratives online, and whether combat sports can survive this new influencer era without collapsing into chaos. No matter who wins, one thing's guaranteed: the rules just changed. Boxing will not come out of this the same. A remove the text from screen, remove text from screen.